For a second, let's just forget the thought of rescue and skip right to the part of what exactly a person would eat if they got stranded in the wild. For the adventurous ones among you, you would imagine hunting down a deer or other animal, or jump right into the water and catch a fish. But when you'll actually be put into the situation, you'd resort to picking up coconuts that had already fallen to the ground. Now let's not forget one thing. Stranded on an island with readily available coconuts, dry husk for making fire, and an ocean full of fish right next to you is one lucky place to get stranded. If you do get stranded, chances are your car will stop working in the middle of nowhere on a road trip, or you went hiking in the woods and lost your way. But whatever the case, talking about survival is fun. Imagining cooking this and that on hot stones and making a hut with branches and leaves, playing in the water, trying to poke at some fish until you catch one, making new clothes like Tinkerbell, yeah, all that is awesome. Just until you pop a tempting red berry in your mouth, and next thing you know, you have a horrible bellyache and 2 days later you're dead and vultures are feasting on you. Yeah. That went from a happy, sunny, musical Disney day to something you'd see in a nightmare. Food is a very important part of survival. Although we can live without it for up to 3 weeks, a rumbling belly is hard to keep quiet. Today, let's look at 10 things that we should never eat in the wild. That's right, not what you can find on a scavenger hunt, but when you see one of these, you want to turn back and run. But before we prepare you to set you out in the wild, don't forget to subscribe and press the notification button to get updated with new interesting videos like this one. Number 10. Mushrooms. Who doesn't love roasted mushrooms? Marinated green spored parasols and morels are the best. If you fell for that, maybe you might want to stay away from all mushrooms when you're out in the wild. Mushrooms can be deceiving. There are many edible mushrooms outdoors, but not a good choice to make because among the thousands of edible mushrooms in the wild, there are many poisonous ones as well. And they look very much alike. And you might be thinking, oh look, tonight I can grill some white button mushrooms on a stick along with that pofish I caught this morning. But turns out it was a poisonous green spored parasol. Unless you're some sort of fungi expert, it's better to leave those tasty delights alone. You're better off buying your shrooms at the grocery store. The prized morel mushrooms have an evil twin, the toxic false morels. And then there are the delicious chanterelles, which have an evil brother, the poisonous jack-o'-lantern mushroom. That's only to name a few. There are more than just a few names and pictures you can memorize. Remember, better safe than sorry. Eat your mushrooms from the grocery. Number 9. Poison ivy. If you're not stupid, you probably realize that you have to stay away from this plant. Why in the world would anyone want to go check out something that has poison in its name? Hey, don't worry about it. If you cook it, it kills the poison. Or maybe you didn't know it was poison ivy and you wanted to see if you could make a back scratcher out of the leaves. One of the two. Poison ivy looks very similar to other harmless vines, so it can be mistaken. This plant contains an oil, urushiol, that is a severe skin irritant. Touching it can cause a blistering rash, and if you've been exposed to it, you can become allergic. Allergic reactions can be deadly. What's strange is that some genius thought that eating poison ivy might help develop immunity to it, which was a really bad idea. Never try it. All that will happen is that you'd get a rash inside your mouth, throat, and intestinal lining. You'll have nausea, vomiting, fever, and you could even die. Number 8. Horse nettle fruit. Say one day you're hiking and you spot some cherry tomatoes growing in bunches. First thing you do, leave all that you have and go start picking them. Who doesn't like cherry tomatoes? But eating them off a bush while you're hiking in the middle of nowhere isn't a good idea. I'm pretty sure Red Riding Hood didn't come to that exact spot and garden some there. And for one thing, wild tomatoes don't even grow in 48 states in US. But that's not to say they don't grow in other parts of the globe. The tomato family actually has quite a lot of relatives. They are wild and dangerous, the kind that you don't want your children hanging out with, even if they're related to you. Horse nettle is that hippie cousin of yours that lives in a tent in the backyard. This fruit is typically yellow or green and looks like an unripe cherry tomato. Things get worse when winter comes around, because that's when the plant itself shrivels up and is dead. But that small fruit stays tempting and juicy. And if you pop that into your mouth, be prepared for abdominal pain, breathing difficulties, and other awful symptoms. Number 7. Next up is the rhododendron. Looks beautiful. Another name for this plant is the king of the shrubs, because this flowering evergreen plant thrives in temperate landscapes. Although this isn't one of the types of plant that on seeing one would go, oh look, there's food. Rather, we'd pick them up and make a necklace or stick them in our hair or something. On the other hand, your hippie cousin might be a fan of munching on flowers. Rhododendrons have large, leathery leaves and pretty clusters of red, white, pink, and purple flowers. It would look great if a wedding banquet was decorated with these. Unfortunately, no one would want to go to that wedding because every part of a rhododendron is toxic, and the leaves in particular are even more dangerous. For sure, you'll have stomach irritation and abdominal pain if you start munching on one of these. But that's not where it stops. It can cause abnormal heart rate, coma, and even death. These beautiful bunches of flowers are not only dangerous to humans, but to other animals as well. Some even call rhododendrons as lambkill or calfkill, as young animals unaware of the danger have often died from eating large amounts of leaves or flowers. Written records have been found that talk of rhododendron poisoning from as long ago as 400 BCE, when 1,000 Greek soldiers had become sick from honey intoxication. That honey was made from rhododendron nectar. So don't only be aware of what flowers you eat, be aware of where you get your honey. Now that I think about it, honey intoxication is a pretty good murder plan. No one will even suspect it when you give them a nicely wrapped and ribboned crystal container of honey. And after all, the blame is on the bees, right? Number 6. Lionfish. Now this one, you might want to catch it if you spot it, but beware, these fish have high levels of toxins in them. But there is a catch. These colorful lionfish are native to the Pacific Ocean, and in recent times they have taken over Caribbean waters, but they have become a big problem for the reef ecosystems, as they have a voracious appetite. So to combat this problem, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration actually advocated eating this fish to help get rid of them. The NOAA did admit that these fish have venomous spines, but they said if it's removed, the fish were safe to eat. But don't go out ordering grilled lionfish. So what if NOAA advises it? According to FDA, in 2010, about 200 lionfish were tested, and more than 25% of the fish had unsafe levels of toxins that cause ciguatera. But don't think ciguatera is an anomaly. About 50,000 cases of this sickness are reported annually around the globe. It is a type of fish-based food poisoning and causes the typical food poisoning symptoms along with neurological problems. You may experience tingling in the hands, feet, and feel like your teeth are coming loose. Number 5. Holly. This may look familiar to the wreath you hang during Christmas, but there are many species of this plant, and some of those grow in the wild. However, when you're stranded and you pop some of these berries into your mouth, it can cause nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and even death. Not so Christmassy anymore. The berries are poisonous, but the leaves are a whole different story. Native Americans used to use the leaves of some of the varieties of holly plants for medicinal purposes for over centuries. Ilex vomitoria, a species of the holly plant, helped induce vomiting, while the Ilex opaca was used as a heart stimulant. Tea was even made with some of the holly leaves that was involved in combating everything from coughs, congestion, high blood pressure, and water retention in the joints. Despite the widespread use and the benefits, experts recommend to stay away from ingesting holly leaves as it seems to be too risky. Number 4. Bats. We're talking survival here. When you haven't eaten for a week, no hope of rescue, you might want to catch whatever you spot. And if you have been watching those survival shows, you might already have had it in your mind. Did you know, be it a matter of survival or not, people around the world eat bat meat as a delicacy? Bats are smoked and put in soups, and they are apparently a good source of protein. So should you go for it? I'm not sure you would want to risk it, because bats host more viruses than any other mammal on the earth. It is even believed that the outbreak of Ebola in 2014 came from bats in West Africa. Although the harm isn't so much from eating the bat meat itself. but from being bitten or scratched by one when you're catching it, or from touching any bodily fluid while you're cooking and cleaning it. Ebola isn't the only disease bats have been linked to. People have suffered from high rates of strange neurological illnesses that was traced to the consumption of eating the Mariana flying fox, a type of bat. This bat has a habit of eating seeds from cycad plants and obtains its neurotoxins, and thus becomes dangerous for consumption. So when you're out in the wild, let's just stick to stealing bird eggs instead. Number 3. Foxgloves. The prettiest ones are often the most dangerous. There are a bunch of edible flowers, for example marigolds, carnations, bee balm, and more. But that doesn't mean you could randomly go and start picking pretty flowers in your basket to cook soup later on. Lots of them are poisonous, and that includes foxgloves. They are also called throatwort or witch's thimble. And you can guess why. First off, eating foxgloves will make your mouth hurt. Second, you'll develop nausea, start vomiting, and of course cramps and diarrhea. The most dangerous effect of the plant is that it can affect your heart rate. However, those same components that cause this is great for producing digitalis, a heart drug used in the medical industry. Number 2. Hemlock. Did you know how the Greek philosopher Socrates died? He was sentenced to death by drinking poison hemlock tea. So unless you want to meet Socrates anytime soon, eating hemlock isn't the smartest idea. This plant is a member of the parsley family, and its leaves are often mistaken for wild parsley and its roots for parsnips. Every part of this plant is toxic, with the seeds being especially dangerous. It contains conine, a toxic alkaloid. If you happen to mistake it for parsley and sprinkle some on your bat soup with a side of holly leaf tea and horse nettle salad, you better eat up, because that's the last meal you'll have. Hemlock poisoning causes the typical poisoning symptoms from vomiting, weakness, and trembling, and it can also put you in a coma and depress your nervous system. Number 1. The most dangerous of them all in the wild is water. And yes, I know maybe water doesn't belong on this list because it technically isn't edible, but it's drinkable. It's something that goes in your mouth, so it's worth talking about. If you haven't managed any food, at least you would have arranged some water after being stranded 2 or 3 days. Thirst can be a powerful motivator. Say you went biking into the woods, crashed into a tree, broke your bike and scraped your knees. When you got up, you realize you're too far away to walk to any place of safety, even within a few hours. You start walking when you go to take a sip of water from your flask and it's empty. Luckily, you see a pool of stagnant water and run to it. Take a long sip and quench your thirst. After all, on a hot day like this one, it's better to have a sip than going hours without even a drop. Next thing you know, you do eventually get saved, but now you're in a hospital with malaria. Any stagnant water or even slow-flowing water is a perfect place for innumerable insects to breed. Among these insects, mosquitoes are the first to hop in, and they're well known for transmitting serious diseases like malaria, dengue, and West Nile virus. So you're better off holding it all together and marching off in search for a more reliable source of water like a running stream. Have you ever been lost or stranded in the wild and had to arrange food from whatever was around you? If so, comment in the section below and share your experience and advice with us. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon to be notified with more interesting videos like this one.